Hello, hello, welcome. Thank y'all so much for coming out. I feel so lucky to be a part of this. We have a really amazing group of poets. And it's been such a fun weekend too. First of all, thank y'all, thank Poetry Festival organizers for everything. This has been so great. Shout out Sean Monroe, Henry, Bill, everybody. Appreciate you. Thank John, the owner of St. Rock Tavern, for having us. Wonderful venue. Feel very lucky to be here. Thank you, John. Make sure you tip everybody at the bar. So yeah, welcome. Thanks again for coming. This is a Mercury Furs reading. If you're not familiar with it, Mercury Furs is an online journal of poetry text and whatever else. Take a look at it. If you haven't seen the website, mercuryfurs.org. There's a ton of great work on there. And my name is U Lockaby, by the way. I edit the journal. And yeah, so the way that this reading will go is that, sorry, let me get my notes. I had a late night. I'm just trying to get it together here. So let me tell you first of all that there are programs. We're going to skip bios. We're going to just introduce people by name only before their reading, just to sort of keep the energy and flow of it. But check out the bios of the readers in one of these flyers. There's a bunch of them stacked at that table in the back. And you can find more details about people's work, you know, if you're particularly stoked about somebody or everybody. And there's also a merch table where a bunch of contributors have books with Venmos and things back where that hand is in the air. Or you just find the poet and ask them if they have a book for sale, and they will sell you one if they got it. So the way it will go is each reader will read about 5 to 7 minutes. We will have 5 poets first. We'll take a 10-minute break, regroup, and do another 5 readers. And then we'll close it out. Before we start with that set, though, I wanted to start by just talking about Tyrone Williams for a second. Tyrone Williams was a really incredible poet who passed away recently, and he was an issue 4 of Mercury Furs, and I really wanted him to come read here today, and I didn't get a chance to ask him because he passed away first, but he was an extremely kind man and a wonderful poet, and so I just wanted to start by playing a recording of him in one of his poems.
I feel like I'm in class asking questions at this point, but I won't do that. So, this is Karen on the Potomac. Potomac. I can never say, I know you from DC, you can say that, but I can't say that. Karen on the Potomac. A cornered stamp is a dangerous coin value driven up, as it is driven to the brink of extinction. Not unlike this conceit by dint of displacement, the lesser abasement compared to a kinship with the coin, I retrieve from the shades of cold lips or wet tongues as my fee for transport to the land of the dead, demeans me to a stamp that man's all hands on deck to ply this river or carry envelopes, shade of shades, from the land of the dead to the land of the living. Reader of mockery reversal, though this thin difference between the same tenors in different vehicles makes all the difference, proxy per permanence. Or so I'd hope. resigned to middle management by the glass ceiling of a vaulted El Araf. Rumors that it devised nothing from nothing notwithstanding. I envy no plant, animal, or human life as long as my not unimportant role in the play of existence was acknowledged by those forms of life closest to ours, and my name expired dread in those who profess that death is not oblivion. But now as I recall those spheres, domes, and temples, vain aspirants to a glory that once populated the sky, nay heavens, the vanity of this Janus-headed capital offends me, and more, the national, no epochal reduction of me to a children's story cannot and will not go unpunished, however much I lack the power to impose my authority. At least that strange human I once saw in the veranda of a mansion, yet another vain project near the land these Americans call Mount Vernon, seemed to actually see me, for I recognized the terror in his eyes. I smile with pleasure as I sail by with another shipment of red and white savages. Would that his descendants were as humble as they strolled about their vain efforts at capturing time in museums, archives, libraries, memorials. Had I the power, I'd bend that national harbor atrocity, Capitol Hill, into a long train of gondolas plunging down the rapids of an agitated Acheron into my waiting arms, a sneer on my face. That was my I went to DC poem.
Thanks, Tyrone. Our next reader is Joe Hall.
It's so good to hear Tyrone's voice again. So I'm going to read some poems from this book that comes out in a week or two, but I have some pre-sale copies here, and if I don't fuck up the timing, I'll end with some from Mercury first. But this is People Finder Buffalo, and Buffalo is like an extremely poor provincial city whose municipal information infrastructure has largely collapsed. So it's hard to get the news there, and if it's hard to get the news, it's hard to figure out what to do. And so, these poems are just trying to keep some information, some stories in circulation. And they first appeared in a book that was about garbage, so it's about the most garbage people in Buffalo doing the horrible shit that they've done to themselves. It's kind of a petty poem, yeah. But, so it's going to name some names. It follows Brandon Shimoda's idea that those who, sort of exist within power structures, benefit from the oblivion that those power structures grant them in regard to their violence. Right, so it's kind of following that. You're not going to know any of the names, but feel free to fill in the names of members of your own city and or power structure in this order: racist developer, white supremacist sheriff, crime panic business association, killer cops, and if we were to update this book, every ceasefire foiling and genocide denying motherfucker. 1. Can't dream the economy because it's good, they might repo the economy. Your bet is good. Can't dream because the economy is, they might repo your good dreams. The economy is can't dream because you're good, the bad, the had to get a second economy to make the rent. That the body dream can be free. We're all economies, someone communion in that common in that freedom, economy, communion, only dream in that repo. Freedom in that freedom can only be. 2, Carl P. Key hangs out at JT's Fungus Mouth. JT's Normie Horror Value Cube Urban / JT's Carl Palladino hangs out at this dismal horizon of stage 4 Italian gentroids. You can, 905 Elmwood bar fight. Sheriff Tim Howard arrests Tim Howard for murder and spends the night looking the other way as Tim Howard knocks Tim Howard's head against the hardness of the Erie County holding center, whispering, "Murderer, murderer, murderer." There's like information about these piles of shit. This one is oddly the most controversial in Buffalo. The Allentown Arts Festival finds Allentown too queer, trans, butch, and non-binary and lodges a zoning complaint to evict Allentown from Allentown so Allentown can quietly be plaqued in a dead, appropriately affluent Oregon. 5, pigs. Officer Tedesco stops Officer McAllister outside of his house in Kenmore, his house from which an American flag with one blue bar flies. Officer Tedesco demands Officer McAllister stop and show him his hands. Officer Tedesco then beats Officer McAllister with an inch of his life, so Officer Parisi, who was circling Meng Park, steps out of his vehicle and shoots Officer Tedesco 38 times. Officer Parisi and McAllister write a false report at the station. Officer Tedesco files a false report in hell. Narcotics detective Joseph Cook, during a drunk no-knock raid on the police station, stumbles and kills Officers Parisi and Tedesco. They are all thrown a parade by the Minister of Flies. All the people come to lick their shining leather, while the chief of police reads collaborative fiction applause. Okay, so these are about the people who rule Buffalo, developers. So this is Louis and Paul Simonelli, developers, 10. Simonelli by Simonelli from Simonelli by Simonelli from Simonelli on credit what might be food flies into beds, trees, porches, 30-year-old Ken Moore, cake bacon ovens fly from Simonelli into Simonelli from Simonelli to Simonelli, the big nothing 58.9 million into Simonelli, ask for more millions to pour into official-looking emptiness. Simonelli must walk as Simonelli on house of Simonelli, the void hungry to change the rules so Simonelli can inhale more homes bleeding from the pinata of the city, the void Simonelli whacks on the day of his sentence and release into the artificial extended downtown graveyard. Simonelli summoned for Simonelli from a river bend and broken stones of a city-owned parking lot and repeat until Buffalo is a lonely concrete dome. Simonelli gropes through his bleeding memories into the terrible black hole that is his brother. Simonelli drags like a lead ball through every empty street, every empty house, every empty block, every locked door, printed with this sutra: for rent, the only for rent, one, you, for rent, may know, for rent is yourself, for rent, Simonelli, for rent, for rent, for rent. Okay. You know the cop poem, my mom read the book and she's like, aren't you worried, you know, that the cops are going to read the poem? Yeah, I wasn't. Here's a poem from Mercury Furs. It's called Fugue 129. The couch where I may be the pond that imagines the tree. It's a spiteful translation of a Wendell Berry poem. When I am sick with the world, the emerging from the mist, melting back into a swirl of sediment, and I wake from the slumber that is my waking, in a night in fear that any phenomena may touch my wrist with its fingernail, in fear of that anything may save my wife and children, will not be, or will be as none of us intended or can bear. I go and lie down in front of my screensaver of a dollop of lacquer shaped and hardened into a duck, resting on a milky pool, limbed in a silver light that suggests night. I lie on my couch, its notched and screwed frame, stapled fabric and stuff. I hug the cushion. It is firm but gives. I feel the stitching of the cushions, this assembly of people doing that I own and so could set fire to or sell or clean on my knees with a toothbrush. And then I come into the peace of things that have no sensation or apprehension of themselves or where they will go. I come into the presence of uncommunicative things, and I feel above me nothing, waiting with its blind nothing. I rest in the grace of owning what is around me and mine, and I am free, like Wendell Berry in the Fugue 129. That's for you Wendell Berry heads. Alyssa Perry is next.
Hey Joe, is this yours? Oh, sorry. Glad that's yours. All right. Hey, everybody. Can you hear me okay in the back? Should I bring this up a little bit? Is that a thumbs up or a higher?
Thumbs up.
Higher. Mixed messages. Sorry, and thank you. Well, yeah, the higher? No, this is good. This is good. I'm kidding. Hey, cool. Hopefully the rest of us are all the same height, roughly. It's so great to be here with you all. Joe, I love those poems. Yeah, a lot of writers whose work I cherish and ways of being in the world I respect a lot. So I'm going to read two poems. They're both from a book forthcoming in fall called Oily Doily, loosely. Maybe about art's relationship to power, we'd say. So this first poem is reassembling two Elizabeth Bishop poems. The first is The Fish. The second is Filling Station, which, as you may know, begins, "Oh, but it is dirty. Oh, but it is a doily. A big, dim doily, draping a tabaret, a big hirsute begonia, a green line frayed. Why, oh why, daisy stitch with marguerites, the doily with the daisy. Who can say? The daisy can say, softly, quick and saucy, say, oh, oh, oh. Oil had spread a rainbow, a so, rainbow, rainbow, rainbow. Somebody loves like the tipping of an object toward the light, the daisy softly, to say softly, so that they can say softly, victory. So oftly, victory. Like fine rosettes, like full-blown roses, like a pink, big peony. The little rented pool of bilge careful's its soft irises. Thank you. And the second poem is about an 18th century swan automaton. If you're interested to know more about it, I've got a really good YouTube video for you. All right, and that'll be it for me. A swan. A swan. A silver swan automaton articulates a remove from time, tells time itself, mechanical, foolproof. At 2 p.m. in the Provincial Museum, the dial, daily wound. For the swan's bath streams and flashing glass, the pinned tune, and little fish, likewise with levers moved, zip over under a motion to water, the mind vacuums, nearer, no farther, what it has come for, what it is on view. Archival jewel, syncopate tower, radial cue, clouded remove, the silver throat of the silver swan reeling on the proxy calm of the waters. Of the waters on the face, a living grace about his movement, a living intelligence in his eye, of strass and pasteboard gem, semisphere, it presents half a rapid mirror, scaling back in a second's glancing at an eye, the eye bit's inner surface holds in, occludes with glue, the future. Seen through anti-reflective sheets of glass, LCD browser, I tab not close to the piled cams that convert spin to lineation, great with semi-ancient water, damage the permeated hollow head, the chug of mind, the chore of mind, its exact replica of the female mute, took 1 year to produce children in an arcade who will purchase access to Merlin's vertebrae, rising via roller and spring, filed pins, riveted links, the conic pulley of the fusee. Of the fusee, gear operatory. Perhaps no problem in mechanics ever solved so simply and so perfectly as the conic pulley of the fusee, the original chains of thee made by children, ages 9, 8, 7, whose hands were small enough, and those of their mothers remain the original chains, the living hand to wind, who living had no note, young mothers linking. When this mechanistic swan glitz outlives me, whose birds will I be? What will I seed? Shit's in. Iota in work, iota unwinding, the time to owe nothing, the reasonable fee, the docent opposing, key ratchet to mainspring, teeth to touch, undo. The swan is on the move. No sense of touch, it has no brain, glorious legerdemain. Bill eased athwart back, patters at a single solid feather mast, autoprene, flap, flap, no consideration of lack of appetite. The swan is figured on, substanceless, it scuds to crystal curve, the bars that churn, the glass skewer cascade of the till turn, the water curb lifts, its mock fish, shining ifs, exhibit ifs, which nod and whir, and in certain centuries, states of repair, sporting about, scatter. As swan darts surface, bill encroaches, throat opens, oh, spinny scrim, unexceptional wish, interrictus, desire, mechanic, avidity, fix, jaw, twitch, flash, gullet, and exhibit. Sleight of life, no secret to hide. Ifs, born in a morass, you, silver fish, winded in and silver mouth, reeling in and out of time, I tell it by. Small hands closing, small hands closed in the coil, century by century. Others scatter over those of an effort, small enough, still. A swan. A swan. Whose swan? The everlastingly, whose swans I was. Thank you. And next we have Leah Niebuhr.
Thank you. It's great to be in New Orleans. This is my first time at the festival. And I've met so many lovely people whose work is so dope. So thanks for having me. I'm going to read a couple poems from Soft Apocalypse that I rarely read or haven't read at all in front of people. And this first one is dedicated to everybody who was up way late last night and still kind of feels like it's morning. Released from the necessity of apology, we are facing the scrim wall. It is a very bright Sunday morning we've come to. Bare feet leaving rhythmic traces in the torn light, voices driven to the remotest corner of the room. I'm not claiming I'm pure. A sleepless night always leaves me in a stupor. A throttle of subway cars, unforeseen delays, loose change, a future taped haphazardly to the back of my heart. We simply got older. A blueprint for a new October, amoebic beehive in the brain. Variation is not the same as rolling away, but each love wants to be the only compromise of its kind. Unquestioned, pressed, and ready, I lace up an incantation at the door and follow a loop of desire down the sidewalk, kicked along by doubt and by epiphany. Leftover night makes distortions of, was it you this time? Was it me? Angel of Memphis. I am driving west into the dust devils of my Oklahoma mind, my Amarillo, Texas fictions, my dreams in the house, not ours, in New Mexico. I'd like to be as young as the rain, as unashamed as a trumpet, the lick coaxing itself down forever, a stumbling blue alley for what? For whoever's, I guess, loose change. Some machines are whirring on early outside my window this morning. By the sound of it, are nearly broke down, though who knows? I'm not working them. I could be dreaming them. Their perfected limbs, not seized up like a throat, like this, a set of knuckles, its fisted fortunes dropped, rushing in the gutter. Oh, your face from here is escaping still. Gusty winds may exist, dust storms. The next 5 miles, I'd made sacrifices. Nova in the envelope of my chest. I refused to participate in ultimate events. Soaked up each morning, thanking the cicadas coming wet and silent out of their shells. One year I wrote love letters, 156, to complete strangers, then abruptly gave them up. Rolled away from the exponential, past the sex shop glowing over my face, me like some faded foil in a XXX rock opera. It was, after all, my moment. The stitch of a film frame blitzing out an illness, a lyric complication, shit fiction. I dreamt myself out of bed. The insomniac choir overhead went on buzzing up a line of credits. I'm glad you got that cockroach. Everyone's been watching that. It's been skittering around. We're all a little bit on edge. Thank you. Whew. Oh, God. Thank you. Exactly. Crush it. Wow, that feels great. I'm going to read one more now that everything feels fine. Whew. Foreclose me. In this scene, a gale blows and scatters my papers into a profound disorder. Then it's the future, a hand wrapped on the table. Then whatever. The day behind us becomes a darkened face, an overstuffed letterbox, so sexual, or no one home. At night, a spliced montage of stolen, split-level dreams, of houses, sleep horses. With time, the desired body will, if you put a little change in this machine, disappear. Quarter after quarter, the hands know what to do. They connect the wires, they plug into the question, the EKG going off on a little television in no one's bedroom, 4 channels tuned to a purpler future. So what? I deal in raw materials. I deal in dream residuals. I'm not interested in spending a day shopping on some avenue, walking an old logic, marvelous rock on a leash down the street. I'm afraid of the pointing, the abstraction, getting mortgaged, being drug along for no reason. Kiss me again, kiss me again. The sun glancing off the cement, the mouth taste of zinc. As it happens, I have always believed in the baptismal properties of yellow, in the way violet fucks pink into purple, a big promise, a little change, something falling from your hand. Anyway, it's cheap. The proposal drops like a cardboard set to the stage. I freeze, everyone watching, everyone made ridiculous, playing a part. The windows blasted open, a house vaporizing behind each face as if we were waking up to something. A short circuit in the weather, my breath on the mirror after a shower I wouldn't share, the curtain closes on the bed. There is never any time to return like a believer, like an earthling, oblivious to someone, to this rock. Imagine waking up again to an unabstracted given, to that canary yellow kitchen, plunging the hands in, the sink flowing over. In retrospect, how did I keep that color? I let it get away with me. I let it wash me out, cycle after cycle. The players are identical, sugar-struck animals, strip after strip after strip. I mean, look at all this stupid disturbance on stained paper taped to the walls. You photogenic, rampant person. December begins to look like a dream. And someone in the rhythm who escapes the measure, or only an idea I harnessed once for a minute. The love scene was ecstatic, full of believers. October, November, December. I couldn't go there with you. I could only go there with you. I never in the actual pass through that old house anymore. I draw big diagrams. I scribble approximations of the future. You'll be a danger forever to me. 10 years is nothing. A little change, a logic of whispers. I'm telling you, there is never any time. You are nobody's church. We are more and more cities with a steep interval between delicacies, nothing we never return to. Thanks. Thanks. Give it up for Jimin.
Oh, I can do it. No, no, I can. Yeah, that's good. All right. Yeah, thank you. Thank you all. I want to thank Ian, whom I met, because I sent him some poems to Mercury first, and then it took 6 months or longer, and I was like, fuck. But then I was like, all right, he took them. And then he like stopped me at AWP in Seattle, and then it's just been such a wonderful friendship. And just, thanks, Ian. And then I stopped writing for 8 years, and I only say that because all my poem came out of death. My mother died, my friend Richard Howard died, and it seems like, near death, far death, or genocide, death is unforgivable. So yeah, I'm gonna, I don't know why I said that. Just to thank you all for being here, because the community that I re-entered after death, when poetry seems to be most useless and useful, really makes me feel happy to be alive. So I'm gonna read some poems and then I'll go away. Okay. 손이 가는 데마다 불꽃이 터진다. 구멍가게에서 훔친 동전은 몇 푼 되지 않는다. 흙집에서 파는 개미를 혓바닥에 풀어놓으며 상처는 구멍에 내비두는 게 좋지 않을까. 죽기 싫어하는 개미가 혀를 뜯어먹고 난 그 상처를 삼키고 쓴맛을 안다. 집에서 뽑아낸 개미의 근육과 심장, 집게발이 내 구멍 속으로 들어오면서 땅에서 빌린 모든 것이 내 쓰레기 같은 내 마음에 집이 된다. Fullness halved in the cigarette block of wagecraft. Once my orbital lots manufactured malfeasance. All my life I have been the price of gas. Richard, I have everywhere to be good and happy. I steal from the whole, the business of change, small, Set loose in the arena of my tongue, ants, their work fire. Sure harm rests best in a hole, the blister of a small life stained in the saliva I spit. Swallow the insect body, my muscle plucked from the hole. Everything is mine and borrowed, the heart, the protean junk, the pincer, the mind, and the terrible Holy Spirit. All my life, the price of gas exercised my right to harm. Petrol in the unwashed veins of my not yet property. I sell condoms to the unmoored prophet in the wish vein of pleasure. Prophylactics, please. Wrap gloss and cellophane, wish coin, register. Please. Mock pulp of trees, foil, ethanol, pleasures. And taking my body out of the house, I empty into the street as gutter rain. Store my mother in a reasonably sized apartment and darken my dark room, empty into a man and lock the rain in his body and ask him if he can stay. A boat in the river of my blood drifts into a graveyard, and there is little I have to give in the way of offerings. A bottle of soju, 2 legs of dried squid, landlord mums plucked to hide my rain. Liquor rain on my father's hair, I yank the fish cut in half with my teeth, split the fare between the grave and the crows barking. I have married a man to become a more troubled poet, a more honest man, a house less than a dusting of curd. Now, in the disturbed atmosphere of my warp speed wear, I light gas to my lungs and my liver sleeps in, halved inside my lover's body. I have entered properly, eternally, this once. He says he loves his mother and lives the world as she'd lived it. Lies here. Dust the forms that holds it up. Lies here. Boy who never got it up, got up to lies. I never loved my family. Recall just one red shirt on the broad back of a house we don't own, non-named flowers, non-named names, I know already. Unenglishable texture of a native tongue busying itself on a red-furred flower, millipedonous trichomes, how softly they graze from their bedding, 1,000 lovers betraying their pleasures to each and none other. Nothing new has happened. I name only the betrayal myself. I have left just one person, dead in my arms. Came in a gown, she, the naked she, gowned again she, taken away to cold preserve. I asked for the inverse, to lie limp in her arms, displace time again, space. And then I wanted to live, and then I wanted her to die, and then I died anyway, as someone stealing your lover will do. Then thawed she, burst into green flame she, then thawed into red, and then I see a mother holding her dead child, and the difference is I walk away. Death is terrific, traffic, and the sex I never got up, I fold and crumple into music to traffic. Score 3-4, 16-19, wish cut time. You come across for a waltz, and my apex twins your unhurried illumination. Graze your muscled contortions, over-soiled gown, undergarment pissed, sock rot, limbs into soft form eternity strip. Lie, I use, reuse, refuse to each and none other only. I live life as you lived it. Take the music into the bedroom, the forms of dust doubling. My friend, do you want to go see a movie? Brighton Rock at 8 on the pier, a touch on the nose, but what's a crime of love with no audience and candy to sweeten the plot? Is there anything more terrible than a lover who tries to kill you to skip out of town unscathed? It isn't that, is it? But the awful lengths we go to disguise love's terror between a feathered gown and a sharp black suit show too much and too little of her hand. Who doesn't want to choose themselves first, even in perfect union? Just once, to eat the last slice of sky, not caring at all who's there. 시로 내 몸을 짓는 아들아, 왜 또 나를 이 땅에서 지어올리니? 외국의 여신으로 만드니 마음이 덜 불행하냐? 내가 칼을 들고 사슴을 죽이고 짐승의 피를 얻고 집을 다시 찾아가야 하겠냐? 걸음 아래 언제 피던 봉숭아꽃, 몸에 새겨진 남껍질 향, 아무것도 모르는 풀밭 바람으로 태어나기 바랬지. 죽으면 그만이다. 너도 이 머리를 발밑에 덮어버려라. Richard, an ill-considered nap is a horror in pink. The dream is over, but the headburst between sleep and not sleep tells me you were alive. All dreams are faked, and the vision self-televised as a wish-for buy. A phone call to the vault to get back for any price. A body as I knew it. What is the difference between a store-bought ghost and an angel when real terror is knowing you will always be out of range, and money, a pink sky, even then the green out of doors, a sure sign of spring, the utter uselessness of it. Siphoning petrol from the lexicon automaton. We have seen lovers like this, a drive-off poverty, car by car, to make up for, automatic, to revenge, to recover, loss. 엉뚱한 낮잠 자면 분홍색 입은 귀신이 나타난다. 꿈은 끝났고 잠을 자든 눈을 뜨든 불꽃같이 머리가 터진다. 살아있다고 누가 알려주고 모든 꿈은 가짜다. TV에만 살 수 있다. 돈으로 해결할 수 있다. 전화로 돈 내고 예전처럼 돌아갈 수 있게, 예전에 그 환경으로 돌아갈 수 있게. 돈으로 산 귀신하고 천사가 무슨 차이가 있을까? 진실은 거지 같은 한 푼 없는 삶이기에. 분홍색으로 피어난 하늘은 문 밖에 새파란 봄같이 쓸모없는 꿈이다. Thank you.
Next is Kelly.
Hello. Oh, it's tall enough for me. This never happens. Thank you, Ian. Thank you, Henry. Thank you, everyone. So many of you I've known from, the internet, and it's nice to see everyone in a corporeal form for once. To mix it up, I'm going to be reading some poems. I know. Okay. Grocery store poem. Melons, olives, melons, olives, melons, olives, melons. That's it. Great play. I stand by that play. Horse girl. I went to the grocery to buy bread. I went to the grocery to buy shoes in the shape of a fish, a little like a code, a codex, a decoy melon for you. The hardware store closed with the tomato cages inside, sent me a pile of cucumbers as a sign of change, but change didn't come, even with the little stars around it, the asterisks intended to emphasize. I continue to have more horses than you, 23 and a half if you count the pony. If you count the pony, a horse is double, and when the straight couple sat explaining the horse dancing, we were eating raw meat. Though it was intentional, you said, and I said, we agreed. A decoy and dressage, I wore the chaps once. I promise it was fun, and there were ribbons involved, buttons and the half door of the stable, and great thighs all around. The horse girl was a gateway, all the horsehair flowers smelling like the sweat of whichever name we chose to burrow into a mane-tail combo. A gateway is when somebody jokes about someone else's thighs being strong enough to open a bottle. There are asterisks all around that, and change. Bat spit. I have nothing against bats and everything against rabies. As we duct tape the house's creases, we imagine wings, an answering machine of invisible bites. A soft puncture in our safe mesh net, our sleepy weave of television and cloth napkins. Come back, bat, edit, undo. You're just a little November animation. There are little bites of contagious possibility, hand-scrawled local signs of roving raccoons, etc. Only a silver bowl keeping the wings from us, an opera of mistakes, the bat spit potential. Online, all our friends love the bat, applaud us for tossing it outdoors and into their pixelated view, while I try to remember the storybook where the bat eats nice mangoes with its illustrated teeth. Meanwhile, at the cool hospital, the man in the stormtrooper shirt tells us not a day goes by without a rabies vaccine. We are in the bat hours now. We sit on the cool cot, are shot in the ass with thick, globby help. Stella Luna, I think. Stella Luna. Fainting with my pants down in the unlocked cool bathroom with the cool nurse, I am pretending to be neither bat nor man. I am pretending to be undesirable to the invisible. I love water, I tell myself. I fucking love it. Okay, I have 2 poems about butter. International Sculpture Butter English. On the screen, I watch historical butter carving champs. I smear, knife in hand, a pat against the pixels. A buttered, buzzing glow. Picture of a buttered cow behind it. Butter net. Butter technology. Butter computer. Butter hyperlink. Butter internet. Butter ethernet. Butter cable. Butter pixel. Butter algorithm. Antithetical butter. Butter without cause. Smart butter. Butter of things. Thumb against butter. Butter pack keys. Squish, squish. Cow, cow. A golden survival blanket. And this is my last poem. It is dedicated to my cat, Ramona. I'm allowed to try to surprise myself. Here we are, turning the whole thing inside out. A cat not just in the bag, but on top of it. Her name is Ramona, and she hates poetry. Thank you. And I think that I get to announce a break. Yeah?
Yeah, we're just gonna take a 10-minute break between sets, and then so get your drink, use the bathroom, and then we'll come back with 5 more poets who are equally incredible. So please stick around. All right, we're gonna get into the second set. 5 more poets. Smokers, come on back if you can hear me. So, our next poet is Danika Stegeman. Right? Danika.
Thank you, Ian. Oh, this moves, guys. That's fun. Okay. I'm going to read one poem from my book, Ablation, which came out in November. It's real pretty if you just want to touch it, or if you want to buy it. I have some in my backpack, or there are some at the table, or what is it? There's some hanging out somewhere.
Yeah, the back table by the door.
Back table by the door. Thanks, Ian. So I'm just going to read one poem out here, and then I'll read the 2 poems that were in Mercury first. This particular poem is written after an image, which is in the book. Probably can't see it, but it's called Field. There are 4 poems called Field in the book. This is the second one. Field. My mother is a nebula. My mother's eyes are closed, like she's already a ghost. An exoskeleton twins her. She collapses time. I never called her my mother. My mother isn't inside the car, but neither is she outside the car. Her hand clutches the door. Her hand clutches the door with devotion and necessity. Her love has painted the body in 2-toned blue. You can't see it, but the car's back seat is raw, unupholstered metal. Memory is a host. My dead live here in a corridor of rust thatched together in a ramshackle structure. The grass is overgrown. When my mother is pregnant, her voice refracts against porcelain as she spills outward. Her scales feather the drain. Seeds spread. The home we left is a field. I watch the field dismantle the shack, swallow rust. My mother clutches the car's door as though it's what keeps her upright, what keeps her from collapsing, what keeps her from vanishing. Remember the quiet evenings. My mother is liminal. My mother is cleft between worlds. She speaks to me. She speaks to me from a mouth filled with clover. Thanks. Now for something completely different. These are from my project, my manuscript called The Book of Matthew. I'm going to share with you its secret subtitle because you seem like a friendly audience. Poems to Get Divorced To. Okay. Levitation. Wounds open in heaven. Past equals future. Ink smeared ominously, joining the words and the sign into oneness. I shift into fever mind. House of coats. Nothing but sticks. The sweat on my skin shines. You don gloves white as sin. I skirt their perimeters. I know the limits of my faint heart. I place a sketch of it, dissected in half in your hands. The diagram reveals incisions shaped like cloud edges and the letters in your name. In the distance, two overlapping windmills turn asynchronously. Blade, then blade, then blade, then blade. Off the vista, a vulture glides thermals, sharpening its wingtips. Cut the deck. Borrow a hat, and as you hold it in front of you, walk forward. Attach a thread. The hat remains in the air. Return. The blades begin to slip into alignment. When faced with a portal, I reflexively imagine being drawn through it rather than what might come out of it. No mirroring is harmless. Press the mouth of the hat against your body. The spectators aren't aware the double has a hole in its center. Amanuensis. You've got a face like lightning. I trace the shadows of your eyelids to form tears beneath mine. Once, an opera singer looked inside me, water in the whites of her eyes, defiance in the irises. Black lace scalloped her tender wrists. I touch you gloved. I mirror her imaginal across years, double her voice like stars in space, incalculable. Chaos is order repeated exponentially. I seek the song, but never find it. I feel the life force that inhabits your body. Her skin was cream spun to silk. I dream a demi-ghost. Angels are invisible. Only demons make themselves visible. A structural system mapped into being. Corporations linked. The linear commodification of art as saleable object feeling. Do I want this liturgy removed from my body? Is what I want unholiness? Wires and clamps, a permanent wave method, lux cords, checkered and spiraling, joining to your material heart. You ask where I am, what I'm doing. I'm in your dining room, listening to an aria from a Faustian opera over and over, writing a failing epistle. I'm trying to decide if I want you to tie me up or if I want to tie you up. Marguerite is the eternal feminine. When Faust's soul exits his body, it drags him into hell. Aria, dining room. I dream a new shape. Some lines read horizontally, others vertically, others diagonally. Words become vision. You're supposed to be a medium for mystical surrender. amanuensis. I expect to feel a sensation in my lips, but don't. I expect a bright hell, but forget the brimstone and smoke clouding everything. Astral dust. A saintly figure makes a bargain. The saint makes a bargain with the keeper of the infernal world. Sometimes the saint is rescued, sometimes not. All right, up next we've got Juliet Gelfman-Randazzo.
Thank you. This is so fun to be here. A couple years ago at AWP, I turned to the person next to me, and she was dressed exactly like me. And so we decided we should immediately become friends. And then she was like, we're going to this bar. Oh, by the way, this is my friend Ian. And then the next year, I went to see her read, and Sean and Henry were reading. And then I was like, I guess I just kind of only know New Orleans poets now. So when Ian asked me to come down here, I had to come. And it's really fun, it turns out. So I'm glad for Olivia, who's not here, and also for all of you. Okay, I'm gonna read 3 poems. This first one is called Lovely Bride. And I feel important context to give for this poem is that I'm not Catholic. And also that I recently accompanied a friend to go wedding dress shopping. This is written in 14 sections, which means it's a sonnet. Lovely Bride. I just think mayonnaise would be a beautiful name for a wedding dress color, or maybe even a girl. Jesus Crispy, Mama Magdalene, get down on your anything. When Harold and Kumar finally made it to White Castle, I grew concerned. They're gonna get sick, I exclaimed. They're gonna ruin it. It's not about the journal, it's about the explanation. Listen up, I'm cooking here, let me. The construction men who sit on the backs of trucks shoulder to shoulder, silent stoics staring into what they call deep space, are the only ones I believe wield that thing they call rich inner lives. The thing about beauty, it's so, so simple. Something nude and bare and barely there, then an explosion, a floor-length veil. Do you understand? Each of these are prayers. The restaurant Han Dynasty was obliged to take a .net domain. HandyNasty.com was taken by the porn site. This dress feels very intellectual, she said from behind the curtain. I knew what she meant. I didn't know what they were talking about on the academic side of the table, but I grasped the gist, tugged on it. Do you have a sonnet? Here you go. Do you have soy sauce? Here you go. Do you know what I do? I soy sauce the sonnet. Rub-a-dub-dub, how'd they fit all 3 of those men in that one clawfoot tub? Here, have a hook to hang your trench coat. Imagine any interaction, but holding a single rose, running from the cops in a wedding dress. This poem's called The Red Wheelbarrow. Oh, so much depends upon a red wheelbarrow glazed with rainwater beside the white chickens. Could you maybe just give one example? Okay, that's my stupidest poem. And now I'm gonna read my smartest poem. This poem's called Smart Poem. I keep meaning to write a poem about something really smart. Some piece of wisdom that'll stick with my readers for a long time. When they go to bed, they'll still be thinking about it, and in their dreams, they'll think about it too. It'll shape the dream and their whole week as well. As they go about their daily tasks, putting food in their mouths and typing information into their computers or phones or tablets or whatever, all the while they'll be thinking about the really potent moment described in my smart poem. People will be forever changed by the poem, and many will reference it as an inflection point in their lives, a time that changed the trajectory of their actions for perpetuity. They will teach the smart poem in schools, mostly at the college level, though some particularly advanced students may be assigned it in honors courses in high schools, and despite it becoming canon, people will still agree that there is real wisdom contained in it, and that more meaning is there to be plumbed the more it's studied, and the more schools of theory that there are that arise and take prominence and inevitably descend into obsolescence. It will be read at weddings, at funerals, at graduations, and at reunions, but at that point, even though the cool poets will agree in the privacy of their communal kitchens that the poem is really smart and enduringly fresh and innovative, especially for its time, indeed, the prescience of the poem will be particularly noteworthy, undeniably, it will become a faux pas to admit publicly to liking the smart poem because it will be at that point a complete cliche. And then there will be hundreds of memes, thousands of memes, hundreds of thousands of memes about the poem, and it will inspire many other poets to write real works of art of their own, which will go on to shape the course of poetry in turn, and the smart poem will continue to be cited as the originator of many splinters of schools that follow it. However, at that point, the poem will no longer exist as a poem in its own right. Rather, it will be the idea of a poem, the concept of wisdom. It will stand in as a model of what poetry can accomplish and will thereby no longer achieve real effective intellectual and emotional change on the part of its readers. And more people will turn away from the poem and begin to question really if it is any good after all. And once that seed of doubt has sprouted, people will turn from it in droves. And one literary critic for a prominent journal will write a really scathing takedown of the poem, arguing it was never that smart to begin with. And their rhetorical reasoning will be so skillful that everyone reading the essay will be thoroughly convinced and wonder how they were ever deluded into thinking the poem said something wise or poignant or insightful about their existence. And people will begin to make fun of the poem, as well as its champions, the theorists who built their whole careers on connecting the poem to various aspects of culture and letters and modes of being in the world, and their names will be rubbed through the dirt, and people will think how much wiser they are than the stupid people from the past who were so simple to think this poem said anything great about anything. Instead, they will applaud themselves for championing a different, very important and moving and smart poem that will say something different about the human condition or whatever. And the cycle will continue forever and ever so long as people continue to write poems. But I don't really want all that to happen. So instead, I will persist in writing small, stupid poems in the hope that no one will ever believe that I have said anything particularly moving or poignant or wise or insightful about the human condition or anything in any way smart about anything. And thus I will continue on in obscurity and no one will care too much about my work one way or the other, unless maybe after I die, someone will discover my work and not make such a huge deal about it so I don't have to be remembered as a failure in some major way. But even if I am, it'll be cool ultimately, whatever happens, if people think me a failure or a prophet or overhyped or underappreciated or a product of my time or an example of a particular school of thought or an example of a poet with some particular circumstance like some health issue or some particular relationship to my parents or something about my gender or sexuality or some intersection thereof, or a good tool to use to make a particular argument for a dissertation or a book or an anthology of poets doing some specific thing or poets working in some specific time or place or poets doing some specific thing in some specific time and place, or just a real poet's poet or a poet of the people, or not even a poet after all, because I won't be around to hear it. Next up, we have Michael Joseph Walsh.
Find out. This'll do? It'll do. Thank you everyone for being here. Thank you to Ian for setting this up. This is my first time at the Poetry Festival and in New Orleans. And it's just an honor to be here with you, all you MFers, as it were. MFers. So I think I will start with, I'm going to read one translation. Jimin and I were talking about translation yesterday, so I thought maybe I'll just read a short one. This is a short poem by the Korean poet Yi Sang, and then I'll read the poems that are in the firs. Precipice. The flower is invisible. It smells sweet. The scent is in full bloom. I dig my grave there. The grave too is invisible. I sit in this invisible grave. I lie down. The flower smells sweet again. The flower is invisible. The scent is in full bloom. I dig another grave there, forgetting the fact. The grave is invisible. Forgetting the flower, I enter this invisible grave. This time I really lie down. Ah, the flower smells sweet again. Flower that can't even be seen. Flower that can't even be seen. So these are the poems in the firs. This is from a longer series called Toccata and Fugue for the Foreigner. It's in prose and in sort of alternating sections. So I'll just read them, but I'll pause in the middle to let you know that I'm moving on to a new section. And I guess all you really need to know is the half of it is like kind of a fake essay, and the other half is kind of a fake novel. They go back and forth. Toccata and Fugue for the Foreigner. Both blossoms and fruits maintain moments. They are a commotion. You dye the white cloud within the blue sky. In the wanderer's insane stride toward an elsewhere, blue, yellow, red, and white are mind. Intimacy renews intimacy, and unleashed eroticism is obliged to resort to new limits, those of organs, which then falter. Furthermore, just as a skilled butcher or his apprentice, having killed a cow, will sit at a crossroads cutting it up into pieces, so the foreigner's face burns with happiness, precisely knuckled down where the faces of a boat join. I crawled into bed feeling soggy and blurry in that way. By then I knew from experience that there was nothing else I could do. My own face, I realized, was reflected in my constellation of needs, and when I closed my eyes, I could see it there, floating in front of me, glowing and covered in spikes. Even a place like this, I thought, is a story that's always ending. And when I finally rose from bed, I felt odd, like I'd been bullied. I'd been so naive. The air was wet, the sky was dark. I hung my head out the window and watched two birds trace their giant arcs in front of me, suggesting the word yes with a preternatural intensity. And as they disappeared slowly into my mind's upper pool, my hum of satisfaction deepened into a cautionary roar. I was awake at this point, somewhere between laughing and crying, and for a long time after that, there was no telling where I'd be. Where am I? I'd ask, over and over, until I realized that wondering's not always wanting to know. And then I watched as that permission spread over everything, a pestilence sweetly corrupting with tendrils that flapped like white tongues in the wind. The entire body is a mouth. I call it a red furnace. Each word is less the sign of a thing than of my distrust for them. Fleshless skeletons, smeared with blood, connected with tendons. From live metaphor to dead metaphor, with the blood of the finger or the tongue. The inner work of the prosthesis resonates differently in our individual bodies. We feel the pulls of the different media, fan and mirror, blossom and fruit. They ring in the flesh for myriad miles. Eventually, I had to admit that in returning to my dreams so often, I was only looking for company that was the same as being alone. I had no telos. I'd given up thinking. I watched as one by one my past twirled back to face me, until I finally understood that I was myself the camera, that my memories' creations were destined to be my own. Snap, I said, to make it official. After that, I was whole, flush with my viewfinder, and I spent what felt like days turning that feeling over in my mind's eye like a pig on a spit. The wind was howling. The stars were volatilyly arranged. To get to sleep, I'd close my eyes and imagine myself as a prelude to an exorcism, watching the world fold out into a maelstrom of wire and wood. A sheet of light spilled out of the sky one morning, and I was never the same again. I was petrichor, an apparitional surge. I was a clay head stuffed with flowers in the center of a still pool. We arrive at the concept gray, the gray point. We kill space and give light to space. In this body, there are kidneys, liver, pleura, tendons, heart, spleen, and lungs. This was the soil it grew in, this the hour it bloomed. Whenever I encountered those stories, I missed them. Had I been wrong to push through? It was like that relief you feel when whatever else you could be doing, rocking from side to side with your eyes rolled back in your head, say, when even that, unearthly or not, starts to bore you. And so I wandered, I drifted, I roamed here and there like a corpse incompletely exhumed. I was shapeless then, a real modern boy, and I marveled at the ruthlessness with which my dreams broke open into their own smiling replacements. I tagged this feeling seed burst, pink leaf. The world unfolded and continued to unfold. It looked at me, smiling, then looked away, still smiling. And all the while I felt calm, correct somehow, like a tightly pulled drum. My eyes buzzed, my head swelled. My hair moved weirdly in some kind of wind. Thank you. Justin Cox shall read for us next.
Ian, thank you. Henry, thank you. Cameron, thank you. Everybody who made this possible, thank you. Alicia Wright, thank you for bringing me here last year. You're welcome. Yeah. It's not a journey. Every journey ends, but we go on. The world turns, and we turn with it. Plans disappear, dreams take over, but wherever I go, there you are. My luck, my fate, my fortune. Chanel number 5. Inevitable. So a lot of the poems that I write are about like industrial agriculture in Iowa. So I kind of think of them as necropastoral fantasias, if you will, something a little documentary and thereabouts. On the beach found the bones, on the beach limestone palisades, upriver islands, on the beach stones, inside shells of stones. On this beach the socket materializes, half a shoulder shows, buildups of marrow, past marrow this comb, this morning, undercurrent fast, bone-shaped as a large hand. To read the land and run the cut bank saying, ivory lilac, American gum, anonymous missing frame. The same tracks run past bones collected at the base of phone lines you could arrange in myth. I am, say, astonished, moved by the dragon, the serpent, the seasheller, the drift, historically, the horn above this beach, wailing in the wings, talking the tongue in circles, slow buzzards describe. Take the tanker, its tires, approximately monster truck, rolling slowly through rows, indistinguishable at a distance, big paddle wheel lugs lugging sludge, cat yellow, industrial yellow. Take the tanker, 5-wheeler, 5 tubes dealing as it goes down and back. Could say it reflects business blue sky, could say it reflects clouds, could watch it parted out. Wheels the pleasing zip of an impact wrench, mirror brackets repurposed, manifold upcycled, tank swept away in rains with duck decoys floating downriver out of sight, aluminum chairs, signals on the citizen band's dynamic external speaker, talkback stainless antenna. On the hill picturesque, a cottage in pasture green, verdure, etc., white, blue, sky seen through to, window frames aligned, and higher yet the clouds collect and disperse nutrients, disperse dents, creeping vines over the face, foundation to peak, 2 vultures, and on what's left of the chimney, 1 vulture. Brush piles appear, mostly cedar, new cedars between, a big one for ideology, not the usual pasture trees, pragmatic maximum shade, somewhere other than the ditch elms. These next 3, even shorter ones, were in Mercury firs. Thanks again, Ian. Dirt helmet, a historical helmet, an artifact metal met with, smooth dirt. I mean, ritual knowing, a tone from tumbleweeds stacked up over the helmets of cars. Hornets comb the lane, comb the cow in its lake of flies, hornets in the eye, zoidinal. Hornets paper the car, paper seats and springs, each hornet a last summer sunset drive. Hornet, here I am, waiting grasses, ticks, for a good pan, for kicks. Roiled in a thick side of green, filigreed heat, the horse's heart, its big, fast capacity, sweet meat of the seed pod, jawed after grasses, a snow of ticks drifts ankles in bleach. The sprayer goes down the highway, through the field, orange gate. Arms loosed, the sprayer shoots, the sprayer sprays, shoots, sprays, honey locust sprays, pod sprays the cattle, the horse sprays south, southeast, especially the oak, the stand of spruce and rose 4 deep, an L around the stead, sprays the hounds, sprays their varied timbers across the hill, a chorus of telemetrics and thorn in a foot, blood in a track, like a lung collapsed, the sprayer mists the fence's quaint vivisection of scene, sprayer obeying, aesthetic gust in mustard, algae green, and sprays clear, floats up, far and away, sees its head, sprayed on a rock, sprays road gear. Thank you. Stella Corso is next.
Alyssa, are you taking a video of my crotch right now? Are you upshirting me? You loved an image. Everyone has a touch of evil, just some lead with it. Death squad, crop top, teen cunt, poltergeist. I always had a hole about me then. Now my pituitary gland is not functioning properly, so I'm on this platform stage installation of a revolving wagon throwing paint like someone laughing at her own ass print in wraparound sunglasses on a light wooden bench in a blue gallery room with a series of blue and green edges. It's like you came into my house and disrupted it by touching everything. My cardigans, my pump, my bicycle wheel, my atlas, like on some Catholic command, like on the August moon, plus 24 hours of self-injury and bondage straps on a stench-ridden cotton couch. Now I'm here with my Jersey friends in an airport t-shirt saying Miss Muscle, having no formal impulses, yet I ate the whole Sevian omelet before shoving the cationic drugs inside my renal equation. And as I'm standing on the stairs, someone grabs me from behind underneath my tempestuous petticoats, still glowing with uranium at the American Conference of plunging necklines and recycled knits. And I'm like, you faker, go back to drama school. Now I become the feral angel, destroyer of words that you all came here for. Who might be a little evil, who might be just shy, who must drink to hear the news. These next 2 poems are kind of a bummer. I'm just going to be honest. So I'm writing a book called Copies, and I'm thinking about all the ways that we copy and steal and borrow and mimic each other. And one of those things, unfortunately, is like copycat domestic terrorism. So I'm thinking a little bit about that. So this is called 12, Aurora. He wanted it to be impersonal. One person in the front, smiling. He was curious. It seemed personal. After he walked out the door leaving, only that one smiling person. Another girl, she could see so many stars, more stars than ever before, with her good leg out the open window. She remembers the night as warm and clear, numbering the stars. I'd never seen that much destruction. I'm used to smaller guns, she says, with a smile, large hole that was left in her chest. It was impressive, the quirks of carnage, so huge she could push her whole fist right through it, his proud face, approving contagion. He was bright but not tall, his titular phone, considered poses to become most threatening. He had a theory regarding years of keeping score, earning points for fallen bodies, like the points on a star. He had a mission. They were talking about their honeymoons. Normal chat like guys do. He just looked off into space. In my heart, I think there is some evil. 12 consecutive lives or stars. He smiles at the end of the longest sentence in July, the hardest month. I believe there are some angels, that they are busy taking names. And this is 13 Columbine, which actually was the 25th anniversary of the Columbine shooting yesterday. Not a flower, but an event. Not a helicopter, but a storm coming to cover the sun. Not a revenge fantasy, but they had been looking forward to summer. And kids will be kids, like in the movies they loved in 3 acts. Have fun was how they put it inside their planners. There was no other plan. Not a prank, but not living theater, but something indescribable. They worked with whatever material they had, a cool spring breeze, did not keep to the list. 13 in the library with the gun. One was exceptionally bright, painfully so, bloomed we had to prepare for the unimaginable. Like, what did you do inside with all the barriers? In the end, this everlasting impression. And this last one's lighter. This is called Deep Fake by William Carlos Williams, translated by Stella Corso. If when I am trying to sleep, and the dogs and the chickens and my friend is sleeping, and I watched the sun go down just now on the moon, the landscape erected itself around me. If I in my hammock unzip, flex my hips to swallow the stars, thrusting and squeezing as I do contain an admirable muscle, counting reps while whispering to myself, I am horny, horny. I was born to be horny. I am best so. If I on my back with my legs up straddle the entire night sky, and the stars enter me like obedient soldiers, a whole conveyor belt of fake stars, who shall say I am not the happy baby of this glamp ground?
Oh my God. I loved that so much. Thank y'all so much for all of our MFer poets and friends. That was incredible. Give it up for everybody one more time. Thank you all so much for reading. I love you all. I love your poetry. And thank you all so much for coming and listening. there's a pool party at the Toscano Mansion after this, if you are so inclined. Sean can give you the address. 2726 Dumaine Street, up in the Bayou St. John. But yeah, thank you all so much once again. There's books on the back table from maybe everybody who just read in the second half, except maybe Juliet's out of Chaps. But holler at your post. There's also some Mercury Furs t-shirts if you're in the market for such a thing. Yeah, thank y'all.